Excuse me. Hey there. Sorry, I'm interrupting myself, actually, but I want to tell you what this is. This is a free version of the Ezra Levant Show. Now, normally it's behind a paywall, and you have to become a subscriber to what we call Rebel News Plus to see it. But once a week, we take a show from behind the paywall and put it up so you can see what you're missing. Now, I hope you enjoy this show enough to become a subscriber. Go to rebelnewsplus.com. $8 a month, which is about half the price of Netflix. You get my show every weekday, plus 4 other weekly shows from other Rebels. Enjoy the show, and if you like it a lot, why not subscribe? Okay, back to the show. Tonight, why is Tamara Lich still in prison? Plus an update from the Netherlands. It's July 7th, and this is the Ezra Levant Show. Shame on you, you censorious thug! I'm very excited about our reporters traveling to the Netherlands to follow the Farmer Rebellion. We have a special website set up for that, farmerrebellion.com. We have our Brit, Louis Brackpool. He attended the World Economic Forum meeting in Davos, Switzerland a couple of months ago. And there's a World Economic Forum link to this Dutch crisis. It's really weird. And of course, we have Lincoln J., who just landed in Amsterdam this morning. You may recall him from the Trucker Rebellion in Ottawa. I think he worked something like 23 days straight on that story in Ottawa. He just didn't want to leave. And he really covered it in depth. And sometimes he just live streamed for hours, just showing people what it looked like. No filter, no editing. People loved that because they couldn't get the truth from the media party. Media party just lied and lied. Remember this?
I do ask that because, given Canada's support of Ukraine in this current crisis with Russia, I don't know if it's far-fetched to ask, but there is concern that Russian actors could be continuing to fuel things as this protest grows, but perhaps even instigating it from the outset.
Well, again, I'm going to defer to our partners in the public safety, the trained officials and experts in that area.
What do you expect from Trudeau's CBC state broadcaster? Now, the Dutch farmers have their own grievances that we'll hear about in a moment from a Dutch political commentator, but I have seen a number of them credit the Canadian Trucker Rebellion for their Farmer Rebellion. And that's the website where we're compiling the work from Lewis and Lincoln and 2 other reporters who are joining us. I don't think I mentioned this before, but Katie Daviscourt. She's a reporter with the Post Millennial. She'll be coming on our mission too. She's very brave. She has made a name for herself reporting on Antifa riots in the United States, especially in Seattle and Portland. And we're hoping to have a 4th journalist join as well. I should tell you, it's very interesting. Holland requires vaccines for people from Canada unless they're journalists. That's one of several exemptions. And they specifically say on their embassy's website that the reason they have a vaccine exemption for journalists, as in you don't have to be jabbed, is because they value freedom of the press and freedom of speech. And they don't want their vax rule to impose on that. Isn't that incredible? So you don't have to have a medical exemption. You don't have to have a conscientious exemption. You just have to be going there to shine a light of scrutiny on public policy. And in both cases for Lincoln and Lewis, who are not jabbed, within 2 days, they got their approval from the Dutch embassy. And I say that because I admire that exemption, that it's expressly for journalists, that it happened so quickly, and that Holland, which calls itself a progressive country, actually is. It's a pro-choice country. I mean, they're very liberal in matters from drugs to prostitution, for example. And indeed, they're liberal on this matter of privacy and medical choice, whereas Justin Trudeau, who is very liberal on matters of drugs and all other social matters, well, if you don't take the jab, he'll lock you down. Back to the truckers, which were an inspiration in part for these Dutch farmers. What if we heard from Holland that some farmer was arrested and put in prison for more than 5 months without a trial? 5 months pre-trial, thrown in prison, 5 months. Well, that's happened in Canada. A trucker organizer named Pat King. I have my beefs with Pat King, but 5 months in prison without a trial? Or how about a friendly grandma, completely peaceful, nearly a month in jail already, the latest spate, for taking a selfie with a political critic of the government? Well, that is what we're talking about today, because Tamara Lich is in a prison in Ottawa tonight, waiting till tomorrow afternoon to hear the results on her bail hearing, even though the bail hearing happened, I think it was on Tuesday. It was a full day bail hearing on Tuesday. The judge was there, the Justice of the Peace as it's called. He listened, and he said, well, I don't need an hour to think about this, which would have been fair. He didn't say I need to think about it overnight, or 2 nights, or 3 nights. He said he needed all the way to Friday afternoon. He didn't give a reason. Did he have something more pressing? Did he have a golf game or something? Did he have a dental appointment? Why was it that he couldn't decide and give a quick oral ruling and then later come up with a written ruling? Why did he have the hearing on Tuesday and yet make Tamara Lich sit in jail Tuesday night, Wednesday night, Thursday night, Friday until 1:30? It's a good question, I think. The judge in this case was actually not a judge, not even a lawyer. He's a justice of the peace. His name is Paul Max Harris. And he's not a lawyer. His official biography says he has worked for the federal government for 16 years. He managed procurement policy and reporting at Parks Canada. Now, I do not disparage procurement and other works at Parks Canada. I like parks and I like Canada. But he's not a lawyer. And he was dealing with technical legal matters. And while he waited, I don't know, to Google the law, I don't know what he was doing for 3 days, a woman rotted in jail. Does he really need 3 days to think about it? There is no bail case so complicated that you need 3 days to think about it. An hour, maybe. Probably in real time. Is there any accused murderer who even needs 3 days of cogitation? Wouldn't you think that for a highly political case where a woman was dragged all the way across the country because she was posing in this photograph was all the evidence that she should be jailed, don't you think maybe they should have put a judge in? Or someone with more experience than just working for Parks Canada, someone who needs 3 days to think about things and thinks nothing of having someone, like, wouldn't that be on your conscience? How could you sleep at night knowing that because you're so indecisive or don't know what you're doing or you just like to take your sweet time, someone's in prison? Again, not because you ruled that they should be in prison, but just because you're so bloody slow. So why was that person in charge of this bail hearing? You could have had anyone. You could have a judge. You could have a lawyer who was a justice of the peace. Why that person? And why, of all the prosecutors in Ottawa, a city of 1 million people, why the prosecutor that they chose, a prosecutor who, according to research from our friends at True North, personally donated $17,000 to the Liberal Party of Canada? I mean, $1,700 is an enormous donation. $17,000? And it came out in the hearing that the cop issued a national warrant. That's the kind of thing, as you know, that you do for murderers or runaways or like extreme national alerts, not for some tweet picture of a selfie. And we learned from the hearing that the cop who did that did not seek a legal opinion. Of course, police forces have lawyers that they can access, the Justice Department, get an opinion from a prosecutor. If there's some iffy area, a cop is not expected to be a lawyer. A cop's a cop. A lawyer is a lawyer. If a cop has questions, he can ask a lawyer. And in this case, that selfie was published on June 16th. She wasn't arrested till much later. That cop had weeks to put the question to a lawyer and say, hey, does this pass muster? Hey, do you think we should issue a national warrant? Hey, do you think we should do that? The cop didn't seek legal advice. He just ordered it. And the cop who was on trial, sorry, not on trial, the cop who was in the witness stand giving his evidence to this non-lawyer at the leading questions of the liberal prosecutor, admitted he had no idea who the other people in the room were. He had no idea who Tamara Lich's lawyers were. He knew nothing about the event, all of which was relevant because her bail conditions clearly said that if she was with her lawyer, she could talk to other truckers. So you have a non-lawyer justice of the peace who takes days and days to make a decision that should take an hour. You have a radical liberal. I say radical. I've never heard of anyone donating $17,000 to the Liberal Party. Have you? Never. You have a cop with a complex matter who doesn't bother looking at the facts and orders a national warrant without legal advice. And bizarrely and grotesquely, the Medicine Hat police comply like they're under orders. Not a real judge, liberal prosecutor, lone cop, the thinnest of pretexts. And as I talk to you this Thursday night, Tamara Lich is in prison. In Canada, terrorists get bail. Accused terrorists get bail. You know, it's funny, as Sheila mentioned the other day, the cops on this case were from the homicide squad. That's who they put on Tamara Lich's case. Let me tell you what I think. I think this justice of the peace, who's clearly obedient to the government, that's all he knows, that's all he's worked for. He's a creature of Ottawa. He's not a lawyer. He doesn't know the law. I think he's going to keep Tamara Lich in prison. That's my guess. But even if he doesn't, it's outrageous that he kept her 3 extra days before deciding. And I think a terrible thing is going to happen. You see, I've had a lot of battles in my day, including in court. I've won some, and I've lost some. It's better to win, but you can bear a loss in any contest. You can bear a loss in court. You can bear a loss in a sport, in any contest. If you knew the rules in advance and agreed to the rules, and the rules were fair, and so when you lose, you say, well, the other side had some luck, or they were better, or whatever it is, it was a fair deal. I accept the loss, and I can bear it because I know it was fair, and if there was a shortfall, it was my own. But what if you no longer feel that way? What if people, Tamara Lich, her supporters, and millions of people across Canada say, well, hang on. We know she wasn't charged with anything violent. In fact, it was the laughable charge of inciting mischief. We know she's a sweet grandma who's done nothing wrong. We know it's outrageous that she was held for 13 days bail in the first place. Outrageous that they sent the homicide cops to get her. Outrageous 9 more days before she had a justice of the peace. Outrageous it took 3 days. And what if, in fact, she's put back in prison? That's extremely tough to bear. It doesn't sound fair. But then if you know that the judge who made the decision wasn't a judge or a lawyer, but a justice of the peace whose sole credential was working for the government, and what if you know that the prosecutor was as partisan as they come, and the cop was acting in a manner unguided by the law, what if you then decided, which could be quite reasonable, that the justice system is no longer fair, and the rules by which your hero lost were not fair. They were not the rules that others play by. That the game was rigged, that the ref was rigged, that the umpire was rigged, that it was not a level playing field. You can bear losing a game if it's fair. You can bear losing a trial if it's fair, but not if it is unfair. Then you lose trust in the game itself. You lose trust in the institution. In the institution of the police, in the prosecution, in the courts, and in Parliament itself. This is dangerous. This is what will radicalize people. Tamara Lich didn't radicalize anybody. She encouraged them to peacefully demonstrate in their national capital, waving the flag and singing, "O Canada." There was the odd bouncy castle and hot tub party too. That's Tamara Lich. She didn't radicalize anyone. In fact, she brought people back in to the political process. I remember when I spoke to the truckers, they said, "What's the point? Why are we here? What will happen?" Well, you are the point. Your peaceful demonstration was the point, to show the country that there was not unanimity on the lockdowns and the vaccines. Don't make that a lie. Don't turn that into a lie. Tamara Lich and the truckers normalized and brought protesters back into the process. It is this out of control prosecutor, the out of control police, and an untutored justice of the peace who are jeopardizing our social cohesion. Because if Tamara Lich is put back in prison tomorrow, and it's an outrage that she had to wait 3 days to find out in any event, I promise you that will make many, many more people no longer trust a system that they can credibly say was rigged against them. And all the people who would normally squawk if poor Omar Khadr was mistreated in prison, they were silent. The media was silent. The opposition was silent. Where's Pierre Poilievre on the subject? Where's Candice Bergen on the subject? Where is that opposition party that briefly hung out with the truckers? Where are they? If Tamara Lich is sent back to prison tomorrow, that one act will do more to radicalize Canadians than anything else in the last 2 years. Stay with us for more.
Adam Sos here for Rebel News. You know, our company is growing quickly, and we'd actually like for your company to grow too. That's why this ad space that I'm speaking through right now is actually available for you to purchase. So instead of people listening to me, they could actually be learning about your company, learning about your business. If this interests you, if this is an opportunity you'd like to capitalize on, send us an email at ads@rebelnews.com.
Lewis, why don't you tell us what exactly is going on here?
So we're in the city of Drekton, and the Dutch farmers have decided to park up right next to a roundabout right in the city centre, and if we just pan round next to us, so many are out in support to show solidarity with the farmers here. So we're now going to be out talking to people, seeing what they think, asking the farmers why they're here, what is the purpose of this.
We were hearing that they were potentially going near to the German border tonight. What's the word on that?
So, according to reports, the farmers will be heading to the A7, which is a highway connecting to the German border. So, reports are showing that potentially German farmers will be coinciding and collaborating with the Dutch farmers. So
this is all allegedly.
We're
following. We'll see what happens, and we'll keep you guys updated. Make sure you check out farmerrebellion.com for all of our coverage.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Well, that's an exciting video on location in the Netherlands, where Rebel News has sent 2 reporters so far, Lewis Brackpool from the United Kingdom and our friend Lincoln Jay from Toronto. We'll have 1 or 2 more other rebels joining on the ground to tell the story in English of what's happening in the Netherlands and could actually spread to other parts of Europe and the world. Well, what exactly is going on with the farmer rebellion? Well, let's talk to someone who actually knows in the native language. I'm talking about Eva Vlaardingerbroek. You may recognize her from her appearances on GB News in the UK and on Fox News in the United States, and we're delighted to have her join us via Skype today. Eva, what a pleasure to meet you. Thanks for jamming us in your schedule. Welcome, and can you tell us a little bit of what's behind this? Because we can't get the news from the mainstream media. Who are these farmers? Why are they protesting, and how's it going to end?
Hi, Ezra. Thank you for having me. Yeah, the Dutch farmers are out on the streets right now protesting a new law that has recently been passed in the Dutch parliament that basically forces them to give up at least 30% of their livestock before 2030. So the Dutch government is expropriating these farmers' land under the guise of a new nitrogen law. They're saying that the Netherlands, our tiny small country that you can see on the map, has a dangerous nitrogen crisis that suddenly needs all of these actions and measures. And well, the farmers are the ones that are going to have to pay for it, and the state is taking their land. So obviously, if someone would come into your house and say, I'm going to take 30% of what you own, and you have nothing to say about it, you'd be angry too. And that's exactly what these farmers are doing right now. They're showing that they are not having this. So they're out on the street, they're protesting, they have blocked the freeways, they have blocked distribution centers, and they're basically saying, this is what is going to happen if you take our land away. We're going to have food shortages, because already right now, the Dutch supermarkets, a lot of the shelves are empty.
Yeah, well, and here in North America too, inflation is high, especially for food. The idea of deliberately ending 30% of your livestock capacity seems insane. But I just want to get back to the one word that stuck in my ear. I've heard for years people talk about carbon dioxide and carbon emissions. And I happen to know that carbon is one of the most common elements. You can see it in the word carbohydrate or carburetor. We're made in large part from carbon trees. It's a building block of so much. And you can believe in the theory of man-made global warming or not, but that's carbon dioxide. Nitrogen, that's just another element in the periodic table. I think most of air is nitrogen, like more than 3/4 of what makes up air is nitrogen, and there's oxygen. Like, I've just never heard nitrogen, which is all around us, being called an enemy of anything. What are they worried about with nitrogen? It sounds laughable to me.
It is laughable, and that is what you should take away from this. It's not a real crisis. Obviously, nitrogen isn't a problem, especially not when you consider the fact that, well, the Netherlands, like I said, is such a small piece of land.
Yeah.
We have our neighboring countries, Belgium and Germany, that don't have to implement any of these measures, but the Dutch government is doing it. And the real reason, obviously, behind it is that the Dutch state wants the farmers' land. Because probably there are a couple of reasons. So the farmers, first of all, they're a group in society that are very self-reliant. They are basically ungovernable in that sense. You know, they own a lot of the Dutch land, and they produce agricultural products. They have livestock. They produce beef. And what's interesting to know is that the Dutch minister who has pushed this nitrogen law has a brother-in-law who is the owner of the Dutch online supermarket called Picnic. Guess who invested $600 million in Picnic last year? Right, Bill Gates, the man who wants you to eat fake meat.
And, you know, that's not just a conspiracy theory. I know, for example, that the head of the Netherlands, am I pronouncing his name right? Rutte? How do you pronounce the name of the leader of the Netherlands? He's a serious member of the World Economic Forum, too. What's his name?
Mark Rutte. Yes,
Rutte.
Mark Rutte is very, very deeply involved in the World Economic Forum. And, well, it's obvious that this law is a product, again, of these globalist institutions, because this needs to happen before 2030. Rings a bell, right? Agenda 2030, the Great Reset, World Economic Forum. It's very clear that this is a made-up crisis, which we've seen before with these organizations. That's the way they handle, that's the way they operate these things. They say, we have a crisis, and you are the ones that are going to have to solve this by giving up all of your rights. Yeah. So that's what's happening here. They're taking away these farmers' land. They're taking away property because they see a future for us in which we're completely dependent on the state. You eat bugs, and, well, they own your land. You own nothing, and you'll be happy is what they say to you. But these farmers are not happy, and I'm so proud that they're fighting this.
Yeah, well, you know, it's really reminiscent of the trucker rebellion we had here in Canada. And one of the reporters we've sent over there, Lincoln Jay, was really 23 days in a row he was reporting from our trucker rebellion. So now he's going to report on the farmer rebellion, which is the name of our website, farmerrebellion.com. So it'll be interesting to see him contrasting how Canadians do it. Canada and the Netherlands are old friends. A lot of Canadian soldiers fought and actually died in the Netherlands to help liberate that country. There's been a deep tie between the two of us ever since. It's one of the reasons why there's so many tulips planted every year in front of our parliament buildings. It's a reminiscence of in fact, the Dutch Queen, if I'm not mistaken, was born in Ottawa, and the hospital room was declared Dutch soil. Am I getting my history right on that?
Yeah, absolutely. The Netherlands and Canada are very closely linked because of what the reasons you mentioned, and we had a lot of reasons to be very thankful to the Canadians for liberating us in large parts of the Nazi regime. But our ties don't just limit themselves to history; they limit themselves in a very nasty way to the present day. And that is that you guys and us, we basically serve as these pilot countries for the rollout of this 2030 agenda for the World Economic Forum. And the way that Trudeau has handled the crisis there, and the way that he took away your rights, the rights of the unvaccinated, and the way that the protests have been handled by the truckers are something that we are looking at and saying, okay, we basically have the same type of treatment coming from our government. Mark Rutte and Trudeau are, closely, we've seen them before closely, in social settings being very friendly to each other. And while they're very similar in the way that they view the world, and they have the same globalist policies. And the Dutch farmers have really looked also towards the Canadian truckers. And you can see that in the interviews that they're giving right now. They're saying that. They're saying the way that the truckers have stood up against Trudeau is the way that we want to stand up against Mark Rutte. And they're being supported by Dutch truckers as well, Dutch fishermen. So you guys have set a great precedent there that we were very happy to learn from, and I hope that it has the same effect.
Well, that's very interesting. I just want to come back to the farmers and the cattle. I presume livestock is largely cattle. Maybe there's other livestock too, sheep, but I think that really means cows. And I'm trying to think of it's what we've heard in the environmentalist drumbeat for decades is carbon dioxide. So that means everyone has to drive less, everyone has to fly less, and everyone's going to be punished by the carbon taxes. But it seems like this battle in the Netherlands is focused just on one part of society. Like you say, farmers who are self-sufficient and sufficient, are property owners, believe in freedom. I've never seen the punishment being targeted this way, and really targeted at animals too. We're going to get rid of 30% of animals. It just seems very odd. I want to ask you, has the rest of Dutch society shown solidarity with the farmers? Or are they saying, well, I don't care. It's those farmers who are the problem, those farmers who are rebelling. I'm in the city. I'm in Amsterdam. I'm a sophisticated city person. I'm not dirty and grubby like the farmers. They deserve it. It seems like an attempt to demonize and ghettoize and focus the punishment on one group of people and one group of animals, weirdly. Has the rest of Dutch society chosen sides on this one?
What we're seeing now is that a majority of the Dutch people seem to support the farmers, which is great news. But obviously the mainstream media that is run by the establishment, by liberals who live in their ivory tower and who will have enough money to eat their meat anyway and are happy to see you eat bugs, those people obviously don't support the farmers. So like with everything nowadays, there's a real split down the middle between the side of the pro-establishment people, usually people who are part of it, and then the people who are just like, hey, wait a minute. Since when do we think it's all right that the state intervenes in our private life this much? This is quite literally communism. Yeah. So that's something that the Dutch are, starting. I feel like a large part of the Dutch country is starting to wake up to this now. They're like, okay, this maybe goes a little far, but the mainstream media is working overtime to make these people look bad. And I don't know if you've seen the images, but the Dutch state has done a lot to crack down on these farmers. They've actually, there's been police brutality. Yeah. Just 2 days ago, they used their guns on peaceful protesters and actually almost shot a 16-year-old child in the head. Yeah. That's what they're doing now. And those types of things are just stuff that we would never have seen before. The Netherlands is such a peaceful country usually where we're pacifist, nobody has guns. You don't really see police violence all that much. But over the last couple of years with the COVID crisis, the way they've cracked down on those protesters and now the way they're cracking down on the farmers, I think they're starting to show their true colors and the people are noticing it.
Wow, and that is another echo of Canada. I mean, the RCMP, the Mounties, were always held in such high regard, and I think most Canadians respected them. And to see the police brutality in Canada during the lockdowns, during the trucker rebellion, and then to see that echoed in the Netherlands, you're right. When I think of Holland, I think of friendly, peaceful people on bicycles with tulips. And I know that's a caricature, but I think that is part of the Dutch national character, to friendly, peaceful, reasonable. And this is very shocking to me. Well, I got to tell you, it's fascinating. We're going to try and give it proper coverage in the English language, because there's very little coverage in English. And of course, most Canadians don't speak Dutch. And I fear that what little we hear from the Netherlands will come filtered through our state media, our mainstream media, that are just going to echo the anti-farmer sentiment. You make me remember Stalin declared war on farmers in Ukraine about 90 years ago, and it was called the Holodomor. It was like a man-made famine. Millions died. The idea of attacking farmers and food and doing it deliberately, destroying and reducing food production, is so unhuman and dangerous. It's shocking to me. Eva, I don't want to take up more of your time. I know you're so busy. We're grateful to have met you. We hope we can talk to you again. It's just wonderful to hear straight from you what's happening in the Netherlands. We're very grateful to you.
Oh, I would love to absolutely talk to you more about this. It's so important that you guys know what's going on, because this is not just something that's going to affect us. Like you said, the attack on farmers is a way to get control over people. Yeah. And Canada, well, you guys have seen firsthand what it's like to have a state that wants full control over you. Yeah. So it's so important that you're covering this. And I'm very thankful that you're showing support to our Dutch farmers, because they really deserve it.
Right on. Well, thank you for those remarks. We'll talk to you again soon, and thanks for telling us what's going on in one of our great allied countries. Talk to you later, Eva. There you have it. Eva Vlaardingerbroek joining us on Skype. We'll talk to her again. And by the way, if you want to see all of our videos, go to farmerrebellion.com. Stay with us. More ahead.
My mug? I know. It's pretty cool. So is this hoodie I got on, and you could have it on too if you check out our special website at rebelnewsstore.com. That's where you can see Freedom Focus hoodies that we have for you, beanies, cell phone cases, you name it, all while supporting our journalism, where we fight to bring you the other side of the story, as opposed to, being forced by the Trudeau government to fund leftist media out of your taxes. The truth is, without you and your generosity, there is no Rebel News. So again, if you like the reports that we bring you and that we also fight for freedoms in Canada, please consider doing some shopping, picking up some swag at rebelnewsstore.com. We appreciate your support.
Hey, welcome back. Your letters to me. Al Stewart says, I have a feeling that after Patrick Brown and his campaign team watch this episode, he will announce that he is dropping his lawsuits to focus on getting back to work for Brampton citizens. Yeah, I don't think so. I don't think he wants to go back to Brampton City Council. They're waiting for him with plans for forensic audits and investigations. And I don't think he wants another loss. He's had a few. When he was kicked out of the Ontario PC Party, that was deeply embarrassing to him. I think this loss could be, I don't know if his political career would recover, although give the man credit. He is the ever ready or Energizer Bunny bouncing back. Alan Oliver says, he called Rebel News Islamophobic. He has no defense, so he just throws mud. Yeah, I mean, it's just such a weird insult. There was nothing Islamic or religious in any way about our entire presentation. Rebel News has people of all religious backgrounds. I'm Jewish myself. We have Muslim staff, Christian staff, Sikh people. I mean, I don't make a list. It's not an important factor for how we operate. It's just really weird that he reached for that, given that there was no racial or religious element to the story whatsoever. I think it was sort of lame. I think people saw through it. Church says David catching that POS Brown in the arena will go down as one of the best pieces of journalism of all time. I agree. And it was so great that David was wearing a jersey himself, and just the look on Patrick Brown's face, just the freeze as the realization, who is this? It's David Menzies. Am I on camera? Yes, I'm on camera. I'm stunned. What's my excuse? What am I going to say? Oh, yeah, I'm inspecting the arena. Because what mayor doesn't inspect? I'm here to inspect the arena. That's what mayors do. Oh, my God. With my hockey bag and my friends who are all warming up for a game. Oh, my. You know what? It was a perfect video. It was a perfect story. But part of me thinks, I wonder what would have happened if David, our reporter, would have arrived, let's say, 20 minutes later when Patrick Brown would have put on his hockey gear and got on the rink. Would he then have said, well, I'm inspecting the ice? I don't know. I think he's too shifty to hold any public office or fiduciary trust. I'm glad that he is not going to be the prime minister. I say again, I would have rather him be dispatched by voters, but I'm glad in any ways that he stopped. That's the show for today. Until tomorrow, on behalf of all of us here at Rebel World Headquarters, to you at home, good night, and keep fighting for freedom. What you just saw was an excerpt from my nightly show, The Ezra Levant Show. Every weekday, I do a monologue. Usually it's about half an hour. Then I interview an interesting guest, and then we read my hate mail or my fan mail, whichever is more fun. It's only available behind a paywall, though. That's how we pay our bills here at Rebel News. We don't take a dime from Justin Trudeau. But the good news is it's only $8 a month, about half the price of Netflix. And in addition to my nightly show, you also get weekly shows from 4 other friends here at Rebel News. So you're getting 36 shows a month just for $8. I think it's worth it. And even if you're not quite sure, do it anyways, because we rely on viewers like you to keep us free and independent. I promise you I'll never take a dime from Trudeau. Just go to rebelnewsplus.com and click subscribe. Thanks.